done the cheap. Dirty deeds 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 and the done the cheap. Dirty deeds and the done the cheap.
Hey everyone. Ah, shut your hole. Anyway, folks, you know, that's one thing I gotta say about that song, Dirty Deeds and the Dundercheap. I mean, from AC/DC. Every time when they get to that one line where it's going like, Dirty Deeds and the Dunder's cheap, it just kind of makes me think of Dudley Moore from Arthur, just all of a sudden show up in the concert going like, Dirty Deeds and the Dunder's cheap. And now sometimes I offer people money to be with me. And they take it so I won't be unhappy. I love it when that happens. But enough about Dudley Moore and Arthur. Let's review about a movie where this time I met the celebrity himself. And the movie I'm going to review for you today is none other than Dirty Work, starring Norm Macdonald. Now, this movie was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I was lucky enough to buy this DVD. Has a really good trailer and everything. And yes, I have seen Norm Macdonald himself. And you want to know how I met him? He showed up on Belterra. That casino resort that it's like half a mile from where I live. Anyway, Norm Macdonald was doing his stand-up. Now, he does say a few inappropriate jokes, but he's still funny nonetheless. And sadly, I can't do any impression of Norm Macdonald. Well, except when he, except I got that line from his role of Lucky on Dr. Dolittle. What the heck do you think bargain is, an involuntary spasm? And if you guys don't believe me about him showing up on Belterra, well, here's the proof I kept in this DVD box. What I have here in the DVD box, here is the ticket where I got to see Norm Macdonald himself. That was pretty awesome. I enjoyed the stand-up. I brought the DVD with me when I went to Belterra. And I kept the tickets as a memento. Now, after the show, his stand-up ended. I never thought I would see him in person. But, as I went to the boat, the area where between the resort and the boat is connected, I finally met him in person. And believe it or not, he's a lot taller than I am. I mean, when I saw him, I mean, he was like, whoa, I mean, he was that tall. And I had the opportunity to shake his hand. And I also show him this DVD, and I gave him a pen, and this is where he did his autograph right here. Says, to Michael, don't do crack, Norm Macdonald. And this is the only DVD I got written by Norm Macdonald himself. And this was the best thing I ever had. And I will cherish this DVD, along with the tickets. But enough about my encounter with Norm Macdonald himself. Let's get to the movie itself. Now, Dirty Work, rated PG-13. There are some crude sexual humor and language, but all in all, it is a good movie. What it talks about is that it talks about his background. When he was a little kid, he used to be pushed around and picked on by bullies, until he met this other kid who becomes his best friend, and he is raised by his grandfather, who is a former boxer. And right now, all he ever thinks about is being with a prostitute.
I'll feel a lot better if you give me a prostitute.
Ah, gee. On a little bit of a spoiler, they finally discovered they're both are brothers because he slept with their mothers. Half-brothers, to be precise. And here's the actor who plays his friend right here. Now, in the movie, he used to be picked on by a lot of bullies until his grandfather, well, not his grandfather, maybe his dad, I guess. His dad. Anyway, his real dad tells them not to let anybody push you around. You should fight back and do some payback. So what he did, he messed up the bully by putting guns in his desk. So when they had a call about somebody carrying a weapon, they found the gun in his desk. And they had him arrested. And he also did a little blackmail on his babysitter by taking a picture of her in a toilet. I don't know why. Anyway, when he became 16, his mother passed away, and his aunt decided to hug him and smush his face between her breasts. But of course, he always carry a notebook and say, "Memo, Aunt Jenny is still your aunt." Until now, he has a tape recorder. He carries a little tape recorder as a memento to himself. I mean, try to remind himself of certain things. And ever since Norm Macdonald, well, like on every comedy beginning, he gets dumped by his girlfriend, and he gets fired from his job. I mean, heck, him and his friend was trying to work in the movie theater, and Don Rickles himself keep insulting them, so they got back at him. I never liked Don Rickles anyway. I mean, his sense of humor, he always insults people by calling everybody dummy. "You big dummy! What are you looking at, you hockey puck?" Anyway, he meets this very lovely girl, which some of you probably remember her from the, was it second or third season of Monk, where she becomes the new assistant to Monk. Check out Monk, it's like Sherlock Holmes with ADD. Anyway, all of a sudden, there were a bunch, there was this big business corporation guy, the real jerk. The real jerk, he was planning to bulldoze one of the old ladies' house, so what they did is they destroyed their machine by putting popcorn into their engine. Now, they've been doing pretty well by, you know, working on a business called Dirty Work, where they always do payback on people who push them around. And believe it or not, Chris Farley is in this movie. And here's a picture. Here's Chris Farley in the movie. Who he plays as in What's With His Nose is because he plays a guy who had his nose bitten off by some Filipino... Oh, no, not Filipino. He had his nose bitten off by a Vietnamese prostitute. "You buzzard!" They always make a lot of jokes about him having his nose bit off. His half a nose. Anyway, throughout the whole movie, he starts liking this girl, and she meets her mother. And, all of a sudden, the big bad guy, who's the big businessman, he decided to let them in that there is a house who is a brothel, and he wants them to destroy it. Little did they know, it wasn't a brothel. It was a sewing house. An old lady was bringing girls over to teach them how to sew. So they really goofed up that time. Oh, and here's one thing I gotta say. Norm Macdonald and his friend, they both were trying out these brownies, and they're like hallucinogenic brownies. The side effects is you're gonna break up in rashes all over and you start hallucinate. But why in the heck do they hallucinate that they hallucinate Gary Coleman? Every time when they hallucinate, Gary Coleman is there. Some of you might know Gary Coleman from Different Strokes. The one who always says, "What you talk about, Willis? What you talk about, reviewer?" What I'm talking about is why they always keep on hallucinating you in the movie. And of course, there was a brief cameo with Adam Sandler playing Satan. Norm Macdonald was hallucinating that he's driving a car and Satan's right in front of him, and Gary Coleman is his passenger, saying, "What you talk about, Satan?" Anyway. And of course, Chevy Chase is in this, except he's playing a doctor who is in debt with the mob. He owes them a lot of money because he has a lot of gambling issues. And you know what the most stupidest thing I ever heard? That he bet on Mr. T on Rocky 3. He bet on a movie and betting with the bad guy, even though the title is called Rocky 3. Idiot! You're killing me. You're gig darn killing me. Anyway, throughout the whole movie, they decided to pay back the bad guy who's behind all this, and he also got the conversation on tape. Turns out he left his recorder on, and he got the conversation between him, his brother, and the big shot boss. I showed him. So they round up all their friends and do a little payback on the bad guy, and ruin his opera. And of course, their dad, he has a very weak heart, so they're trying to have a heart transplant, but all they need is to make up enough money in order to pay for the heart transplant. But after all that has been done, and dealing with the bad guy is over, now, the old man finally has a new heart, and he's also trying to get something that is secretive. And I just cannot say. It's private. But anyway, all in all, this movie was really good. And of course, Chris Farley got back on the Vietnamese prostitute. He decided to get hitched with her. But of course, he does insult her by saying, "I will admit if you shut your cake hole, Yoko!" Blah, 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 blah. And then she bit his nose off again. Note to self, don't pee off an Asian girl. Trust me. You know, this was a really good movie, and I recommend it. I recommend anybody who never saw this movie, give this show a watch. Give this movie a watch. It's really good. And I'll always remember Norm Macdonald's autograph signed into this DVD box. Don't do crack. Don't do crack. And Norm Macdonald, if you're watching this, don't worry, I won't. Drugs is the least of my problems. I got better things to do anyway. You know, one time Norm Macdonald did have a YouTube channel. He did have a YouTube show and a YouTube account. He made the Norm Macdonald Show, where he interviews with celebrities and such. But sadly, YouTube had that channel canceled. But there's a new one called I'm Not Norm. Or I'm No Norm. Check it out. It's clips with him with his interview, clips of his shows, and clips from what he did in Saturday Night Live. Well, I don't know about you, but time for me to do my own dirty work. So, This is Multi-Voice Reviewer, aka Michael A. Graham, telling to you all, see you soon. God, it's just so 80s and 90s.